Hello, I'm Dr. Sam Hancock of the Emerald Planet and Emerald Planet TV. We come to you on a week-to-week basis from Washington, D.C. in the United States as we look around the globe in 144 different nations, looking for those 1,000 best practices, the technology, services, and products that are making a difference as we move through the 21st century. And as we have a planet of 9 billion people by 2038 and possibly 12 to 13 billion by the end of this century, how are we going to be able to take care of all these people on planet Earth? And that's what Emerald Planet's all about. We come to you looking at the solutions, the best practices from around the globe as we create the Emerald Planet. Hello, welcome to the Emerald Planet. We're making a difference as we move through the 21st century. And seeing the long-term impacts of climate change. We're glad to have you. Thank you for being with us. As we look at the Department of Energy and Environment in Washington, D.C., a world-class LEED Platinum city, we're looking at sustainability DC as not only just a concept, but actually action. And this is something that's very important to the director of DOEE, Department of Energy and Environment, the Honorable Tommy Wells. And he's a man of action, but also very wise in many different ways as far as how we're going to be able to address the future. But looking at sustainable DC, Tommy, why is it so important that we think about sustainability now and not just wait until the environment becomes much more severe, much worse, and we need to be building and redesigning and repurposing the city, and we also added just a while ago, rewilding the city. How does all this fit together?
Well, a sustainable city is a healthy city. It's a city that that balances with nature much better. It's a city that protects people and assets, so it's livable. But I think that the things about a sustainable city that people sometimes don't think about, it's what you just said. When you take a drainage ditch and you rewild it into a serpentine stream, so it functions like it was intended to, and then it filters water when the water goes back down through it, and it doesn't bring silt right into your rivers. That's sustainable stream that came out of that drainage ditch. It cools the area around it. It gives people beautiful places to walk, to increase their health and increase how they feel. And so I think the other thing that's good to note is it doesn't just become sustainable for people. Things come back. We're on our 7th generation of eagles after they had not been here for over almost 50 years at least. And they're in the Arboretum, and they live entirely off the Anacostia River. So making a sustainable city for us as humans, it becomes sustainable again in so many ways for nature, and it becomes a great place to be and live.
And that's sustainability. Go through how these interact, and why is equity in this? What's important about that? Because we think of an economy, environment, but how do we get to the third aspect of this?
So one simple way is our mayor often says, what's good for the environment is good for the economy. And the best example of that is that in the areas where there's mature trees, those neighborhoods, the value of the homes are higher, the health of the residents around them is higher. People have measured and said even people's mental health is better if you live around trees. So we have neighborhoods that maybe they had been public housing or other large tract areas that have very few trees. And so the equity issue is that if you feel better, you're healthier, and you're cooler, and all those things, why aren't we getting enough trees planted in our poor neighborhoods, low-income neighborhoods? And that's where the equity comes in. And also the equity comes in, where do we build affordable housing? So we want to protect the environment, we want to support the economy, but let's not build affordable housing in flood zones, or certainly we have to be careful that when we create better building standards to use less energy, that's true for our affordable housing too. That's a matter of environmental justice and social justice.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's very, very important. Sustainability plan. We're talking about why is it important. We're going over, these three different areas. But these images really tell us what you're all about as far as Washington, D.C., the diversity, including everyone, and the economic benefit of having a capital city right here, but also making it fun. So, how do we do this through DOEE when you have all these other departments out there, trying to do the best they can for the people at the same time?
Well, I appreciate you asking that, because that's the joy of this job. That not only do we protect and the environment, and that we regulate air and emissions and all that to try to make things healthier, but we also recognize, and we have funding to do this, in deploying solar. We have
Mhm.
money that comes in for getting solar out on roofs so that we have more renewable energy. So at the same time, we use that money to train people to deploy solar. And when you work in the solar industry, you may be a customer rep, you could be the HR person, or you could be the person that installs the
Mhm.
the solar panels. There's many jobs in that. And
Mhm.
so we train people for free, and we get them into solar jobs. That's the fastest growing job market in the country, is
Mhm.
is around solar. And
Mhm.
so that's about equity and amount of satisfaction I get knowing that we're part of the solution to help people that need to be trained or retrained get into the job market, and that we help fund that market. When you get a grant from us to install solar, you have to look at these folks that we've trained first to give them a
Mhm.
job. So we're a pipeline to work. We help the planet, and it's really a virtuous circle that is quite rewarding.
And I think, Tommy, also is when you're doing this training, you're actually bringing technical skills into communities in the past have been totally ignored. And really, we're not giving the opportunity because you say, well, there's no one that's really trained there. That's not true anymore. And I think that goes, as a big kudo to you as far as what you're doing with the DOEE. But this vision of, the swimmable, fishable Anacostia, that really applies to all the city, even if you're not right beside the river. Isn't that correct?
Well, absolutely. And think about it. Everybody's familiar with the Potomac River. Lady Bird Johnson and folks said we need to make this river healthy and clean. Meanwhile, the Anacostia River remained one of the 10 most compromised, dirty rivers in America.
Mm.
Restoring the Anacostia River, which is where it's kind of the dividing line between the haves and have-nots, that the lower income residents did not have access directly to a cleaner Potomac River, and their river was dirty. So restoring the Anacostia River it's an issue of equity, but it's also great for the environment. As I said, that pair of eagles that are on their seventh generation, they feed solely off the Anacostia River. You,
Mhm.
you can remember a time when the Anacostia River was so toxic that fish were compromised in ways that I don't even want to go into. So the
Mhm.
fish have gotten cleaner every year. Um, we have an invasive species called blue catfish. If you or anybody brings me a blue catfish out of the Anacostia River, if I catch one, I'll eat it. They are delicious fish, and we want them out of the river, and they grow up in the Anacostia River, and it's becoming a fishery again, place to really recreate and have fun. I
Mhm.
I appreciate how this all works together, especially in terms of equity, that the Anacostia River is open to everyone. And
Yeah.
the last thing I'll say, when you start restoring the environment in cities used to be known to be uninhabitable for wildlife and such. When you start restoring the environment, and you're the first to know this in any type of media, that an angler um, accidentally hooked about 2 days ago a short-nosed sturgeon. Short-nosed sturgeon is extinct in many areas in the country now, and
Mhm.
it's a species of on the list of protection because they're certain it will, or they're worried it will go extinct. And we haven't seen a sturgeon in the Potomac River for I don't know, 50 to 70 years.
Mhm.
Wildlife's coming back. We have nesting ravens. They haven't been here for 50 years. We have the Nelson sparrow, hasn't been seen until just now since the Civil War. So rebuilding the cities to where it's healthy for people, it also becomes healthy for nature too.
Yeah, and you're doing it based on these building blocks we're looking at right here. And I want to touch these lightly because we still have some images I want to share before we finish. But these building blocks all work together. So, how do you, through DOEE, really make these work together?
Well, the Sustainable DC plan, you can go to our website, doee.dc.gov, and we keep a kind of a report card. And every Earth Day, we publish the report card of how we're doing in all these areas. Because obviously, DOEE doesn't do it all. We have sister agencies and other partners, but we keep the report card on this
Mhm.
plan, and you can see how we're doing.
Mhm. Yeah, that's very important. Family of plans. This is something, actually, I've not seen this before. Probably should have. But how does this family of plans mesh and blend together so that you actually, year to year, you're talking about sustainable, in essence, your own sustainable development goals? How are you able to use this so that we know exactly where we are year to date?
Well, I think in a couple of ways. One is that it's our accountability with the public. They see the plan, they usually help to write the plan with us, and then they hold us accountable to meeting these goals. These plans are also our roadmaps of how we're
Mhm.
going to achieve each thing, and that we have in those plans. And so that roadmap tells us where we need to invest our funds. How are we going to get there? And then the other thing is that I love that we have a democracy. People run for office, then other people come into office, and that changes. This is the continuity. This is how the
Mhm.
public knows that we're not starting over every time a new person is elected. We've agreed on these plans. This is where we're going. Hold us accountable for this. And also, you want to know where your taxes are going. You're funding these plans to be implemented. It's kind of the compact between the government and the governed.
Mhm. Yeah, this is really the institutional memory, is what you're saying there. Going out on the plan structure and then getting to the primary stakeholders. Let's hit this lightly. We're down below a minute. Plan structure, about 20 seconds. And we want to see these faces, and we're going to go out on these.
Well, we have to spend a lot of time in the community, in every corner of the community. That Sustainable DC 2.0 plan was written with equal input from the richest part of the city, from the poorest part of the city. So you have to keep everyone invested in it, but we have to do the work to be sure that everyone is involved. And so then people understand when these plans come out, that why does their power bill cost more, or what are they paying for? I created the bag bill for DC. You got to pay a nickel for what you thought was free, disposable plastic bag, but
Mhm.
every nickel goes towards cleaning up the Anacostia River. There's a nexus. And
Mhm.
so the plans into implementation, you've got to have community input, and you've got to have great leadership. But we've got the best residents of any city in the country that support what we do.
That's fantastic. Thank you. This is Tommy Wells, Director, DOEE, as we create the Emerald Planet.